Hi, Teresa. Thanks for having me. I'm Maya. I'll be honest, I almost backed out of this because I don't really know anything about buying a house, and I didn't want to sound stupid on a recording. But I figure if I'm confused, other people probably are too. So, can I just ask you stuff?
Of course, ask me anything you want.
Okay, sorry if this is really basic. Do I actually need 20% down to buy a house?
That is a great question, actually, and that keeps a lot of people from even trying to buy a home because they think they have to have 20% down. And many times that's actually not the case. There are options for only having 3.5% down or 5% down. And in some instances, you actually don't need any money down to buy a home.
Are you serious? I thought it was 20%. Wait, so how would I know which of those options I could actually qualify for?
We have lenders that we work with regularly, but you may already have a lender at your bank, maybe where you have your checking or savings account. But basically, the first step is to speak with a lender and find out what you're qualified for, and they'll be able to tell you how much money you're going to need out of pocket, if any. Plus, they'll be able to let you know what your anticipated closing costs are. When you buy a home, there's two different things you're looking at. You're looking at a down payment, and then you're looking at your closing costs. And with some of the loans, you have as little as 0% down, but then you would still have closing costs on the back end. So that's why it's so important to talk to a lender, because there's several things they look at to determine how much money you need down and how much your closing costs are going to be.
Okay, hold on. So my $9,200 might have to cover both the down payment and the closing costs?
Possibly. And that's why it's so important to talk to a lender first, because you really need to know what payment you're comfortable with, what your price range is, how much you're going to need in a down payment, and how much you're going to need in closing costs. The good news is that even though there are loans that exist that allow you to put 3.5% down or 5% down or sometimes 0% down, there are also many programs that allow you to ask the seller to pay for a portion of or all of your closing costs as well. So it's not highly unusual for someone to be able to get to the closing table with very little money out of pocket.
Wait, the seller can sometimes pay some or even all of my closing costs? How would I know whether I could ask for that on a particular house?
Well, it all starts with the lender, because you have a conversation with your lender, and the lender is going to be able to tell you exactly what you qualify for. And they're also going to be able to tell you how much closing costs you can ask a seller to pay for you. And that way, when we get started, we know what type of loan you're getting, what we're going to need to ask the seller to pay for. And we also need to know what types of properties to look for. Because if you're getting, say, an FHA or a VA loan, if you happen to be a veteran, then those properties usually need to be in a little better condition than, say, a property that would you would be getting a conventional loan on. So there's so many things that go into the initial search that we start with the lender. And by the time you're finished getting pre-qualified with the lender, you're going to know how much money you're going to need out of pocket, what your monthly payment is going to be, and how much of the closing costs we can ask the seller to pay for, so that you're truly going to have a really good idea of how much money you're going to need to get into a home before we ever even start looking at the homes you're excited about.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. With my credit score being 706, is that something a lender would consider decent, or should I wait and try to raise it first?
I actually think 706, that's that's a very specific number. That's great that you know it. But really, 706 is considered a really good credit score. And I've actually heard of lenders that can do certain loans for people with credit as low as 580 to 600. So you're well above the low end of that. And a lot of times, your credit score has an impact in what types of loans you qualify for, as well as what your interest rate is going to be. So, those are again things that the lender will be able to evaluate and tell you how that's going to help you with, the final cost for you.
706 is actually good? Okay, wow. My dad keeps telling me to wait until interest rates come down, so how do I know whether waiting is smarter?
Well, just like with anything else. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, which is a very famous formula in physics. And so when you wait for the rates to go down, what happens when the rates go down is a lot of buyers come out and a lot of buyers start buying homes, and that drives up the demand, which starts to drive down the supply. And we all know what happens when demand is high and supply is low, the cost goes up. And so while it's great to have a lower rate, you actually have to look at what the reaction to that action is. And that is sometimes a harsher market where you might have to get in bidding wars for houses. The cost of houses themselves might go up, and so there's a benefit when you're in a market like this where you actually have great interest rates. And that's a misconception a lot of people have. They look back at COVID at those rates and think that we're supposed to wait for those rates to come back. But that's really probably a historical anomaly that you're never going to see again. And so what you want to look for are reasonable and strong rates, and really anything 6%, around the anywhere 5.5, 6.5, 7% range is considered a historically very strong and aggressive rate. And so when you're in that range, then you start to see the market balance out a little bit, where you actually have time to actually look at a few properties and not get in bidding wars for them, and the home prices don't actually keep going up and up and up. They sort of balance out, and sometimes sellers even have price reductions. So right now, while we have these interest rates at about 6.5, what's happening is you're actually seeing some sellers have price reductions on their homes, and you're actually seeing homes sit on the market 30 and 60 days instead of going into multiple offer situations within 24 to 48 hours of going on the market. And so there's a lot to consider there, but this is actually strategically a very good time to look at homes, because if you wait for those rates to go down, you're going to come jumping out of the chute with everybody else, and that could end up costing you more in the end.
Okay, hold on. 6.5% can still be considered a strong rate historically? What would that make the monthly payment on a house I could afford?
Well, again, that's going to be something that we're going to defer to the lender on, because when the lender looks at your entire financial situation, such as what your monthly debts are, what your monthly income is, your credit score, how long you've been on your job, there's all kinds of things that the lender actually looks at. And then they look at all the different types of loans that are available, and then they ask you, what's your most important factor? Are you looking for less money out of pocket? Are you okay with a little bit of a higher monthly payment if you can put less money out of pocket and leave more money in your savings? Or are you in a situation that you'd rather put a little more money down and try to get a lower rate? So the lender is going to evaluate multiple facets of your financial situation, and they're going to be able to tell you, like, hey, if you pick this amount out of pocket, then you're probably looking at a payment of this. Okay, guys, I'm sorry, but we have to end right here at this point due to time. But if you hear yourself asking a lot of the same questions that Maya was asking today, then you are ready to have a conversation about buying a home. It's that simple. So please give me a call, Teresa Overcash, at 336 262 3111. I work with Realty One Group Results, and I'd love to help you. Thank you. Bye.